Hey, everybody, Melon here. Welcome back to another episode of Teardown. Today we're going to be tearing down the ROG Keris 2 Origin. Now, as I talked about my full review, the Origin is a rather confusing release from ROG, as I assumed the design methodology we saw used in the Harpe 2 would carry over here to the Keris, as this is supposed to be a V2 of the original Keris 2A, so to speak. Unfortunately though, while some aspects of this mouse have been improved, there's a lot of questionable aspects to the mouse's design, which makes this mouse rather confusing as it's not that much of an improvement over the original Keris 2A's, which is quite disappointing. But while the mouse itself was a little underwhelming in my opinion, one thing it has improved a lot here is serviceability, but only to an extent, as it's very easy to open the mouse to access the hot swap switches. However, the remainder of the mouse's internal components are locked behind security screws, which makes servicing anything aside from the main clicks rather difficult here, which is another rather questionable decision from ROG. But despite these security screws, in today's video I'm going to show you all how to fully disassemble and reassemble the Keris 2 Origin, talk about the mouse's PCB layout and specs, individual component weights, modding options, and much more. But before we get started, as always, you will need a couple tools. Firstly, having an electronics repair screwdriver set will be very beneficial. Now, as I mentioned earlier, some of the screws inside the Keris are security screws which do require a specific bit to remove. Now, while most kits won't include this specific bit, they do include a bit that's close enough so you can remove the screws. So having a screwdriver set that has a variety of sizes and bit sizes will be very helpful. I also highly recommend having something like a plastic pry tool to help open the mouse's shell, and having something like a plastic pair of tweezers to handle ribbon cables and smaller connectors inside the shell will also be very beneficial. And lastly, having something like a silicone soldering mat or something similar to keep the mouse in place as you tear it down will be very beneficial. Now, personally speaking, I like to use a silicone soldering mat as it is anti-static and has built-in component storage for the mouse's components and screws, but you can use pretty much whatever you want from this. Just make sure you have some way to keep track of all the mouse's screws and where they go, as that is very important. But once you have all these tools, you are ready to go ahead and tear down the ROG Keris 2 Origin, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright, now starting off, we're going to go ahead and disconnect the top shell from the base, which is very easy to do so due to the mouse's more serviceable top shell, which is a great attention to detail here. And the way ROG designed the mouse is that the access screws to disconnect the top and base shells are actually under these rubber stoppers here, meaning you don't have to remove the mouse's stock skates, which is a great change coming from the original Keris, and something ROG will hopefully continue to do on their future products. But before we remove those, if you do have the dongle in the mouse's built-in storage compartment, make sure you remove that first. With that removed, you can go ahead and grab a toothpick or some kind of very small tool like this, and you can go in from the side and just gently remove these little plastic nubs. Just like that. With those removed, we can set this back down and grab a Phillips head screwdriver bit, and we can go ahead and remove the two base access screws which are located here and here. And then with those screws removed, go ahead and make a pincer with your fingers. And you want to put a little pressure towards the bottom side of the rear hump here. So kind of like that. And with enough pressure, the backside should creak open sometimes. But sometimes this won't work and you have to access the shell from the sides here. It kind of changes depending on how many times you take the top shell off and put it back down. Now in the user manual, ROG says something about putting pressure here and then lifting it off the back, but I can't replicate that way of disassembling this. So take what they say in the manual with a grain of salt. And I'd recommend just putting pressure on the side until a small little gap opens. Take a pry tool, clip it in, and then run it along the sides of the mouse's shell to disconnect all the clamps. And then once that's done, you can take the shell, lift it up, and gently pull it off the base. However, be mindful that there are little clamps towards the front of the shell, so you'll most likely need to take the shell and pull it up and off like this in order to disconnect it. You can't pull it straight up, but regardless, it's easy to remove. And with that, that is how you remove the top and base shell, a very, very simple process. I'm going to go ahead and put the base off to the side for now, and let's go ahead and disassemble the top shell first. Alright, now the top shell here is going to be a rather easy disassembly process as there's actually not too much we can do here, as the only components that are removable are the actual main clicks themselves. As you can see here, the side buttons are physically anchored to the mouse's side shell as their plastic standoffs have been melted down. The same process we saw Razer do for both their main clicks and side buttons on the Viper V3 Pro and Death Adder V4 Pro. So this makes the top shell disassembly pretty easy, as we can just take a Phillips head screwdriver bit and remove a screw from here and a screw from here. Alright, and then with those screws removed, we can now remove the main clicks. However, as I talked about in my full review, the main click's shell material is very thin and rather flimsy, meaning the buttons have a lot of bend to them. Now this actually kind of works in our favor here, as it makes removing the buttons quite easy, as you can just pull up towards the back of the connector here and just kind of bend the clicks out of the shell, and they will fall right out. Just like that. And here is the shell button, and here is that thinner material as I mentioned earlier, and this is why the buttons have that kind of wobble towards their end, because they're very, very pliable as you can see here. But regardless, with the main clicks removed, we'll put those off to the side, and with that, that is everything for the top shell here. Now, if you're interested in weight modding the Keris 2 Origin, one thing you can remove to shave off a gram or two is this large cone-like structure here, as this is a housing for this small LED indicator on the back shell here, which corresponds to the logo here. So you can remove this if you want to, but just be careful when doing this, because this entire top shell is made of a bio-based nylon, and while it is lighter than traditional ABS plastic, it's also a little fragile, so just be careful if you do try and weight mod this back part here. But regardless, that is everything for the top shell here, so we'll put that off to the side, and next we can disassemble the base shell. Alright, now in the base shell here we're met with a rather familiar central cage-like structure, which is very similar to the one we saw inside the Keris Ace. However, due to some structural changes here, it's actually much easier to remove this than it was on the Keris Ace, as instead of this entire structure being clamped into the back and having to fold it over and then remove it from the scroll wheel encoder as it was anchored in by the wheel on that mouse, this entire structure can just be pulled straight out of the shell, though you do have to be a little mindful about the little RGB indicator inside the scroll wheel there, but its removal process is much easier than it was on the previous versions of the Keris. But on the inside of the shell, as you can see here, all these components, including the main board and this cage-like structure, are anchored down by these silver security screws. This is rather disappointing to see, as the Keris 2 Ace had Phillips head screws inside, which made it rather serviceable, and I thought that given the mouse's ease of serviceability, at least with the main clicks, that we would see the same here, but unfortunately they've opted to use security screws, which makes this mouse rather tricky to service, as you need a rather specific bit to take them off. Now, I was able to get them off with this little bit here. However, if you can find a proper size bit for it, you'll be able to use that as well. But this is why I say get an electronics repair kit with a variety of bit sizes, as at least one or two of the bits included with those kits will work for these security screws. But once you have a bit that can remove them, we can go ahead and disconnect this central cage-like structure, and we can do so by removing a screw from the back corner here, a screw tucked into the center here, a screw here, and another screw towards the back of the cage-like structure here. With those screws removed, we can now see this entire structure is loose. However, on the inside, we'll see that there is a large ribbon cable running towards the top shell to the main board there, and there is also a JST connector tucked on the inside here, which is rather difficult to reach. Meaning that before we remove this cage-like structure, we have to disconnect this ribbon cable, which we can do so by just pulling up the sides of this connector like this, and very gently pulling the cable out just like that. With this removed, we can go ahead and rotate the structure over and gently pull up this PCB a little bit to access that JST connector, and we could reach in with our fingers or a pry tool and gently disconnect the 1mm JST plug. With the battery unplugged, rotate the mouse over, and you want to grab this cage-like structure and angle it outwards slightly, and you want to pull it out of the scroll wheel at an angle. As you can see here, we had the RGB indicator from inside the scroll wheel, but you also need to be rather mindful of the other side here, as this protruding piece of plastic goes behind the antenna in between the switch socket here, and sometimes it can get stuck, which can make removing this cage-like structure a little tricky. So be mindful of this piece of plastic and this RGB indicator if you do take the mouse apart, as they can be a little tricky to work with. Some of the components on this structure are removable, as the side button PCB can actually be removed, as there are two plastic clips towards the top that you can peel off to remove it. However, it is anchored into a central ribbon cable, as I mentioned earlier. However, as you can see, it is an integrated PCB that runs into a cable that connects everything else here on the top shell, meaning that you can't just take this off and service it, which is rather disappointing. The same also goes for the RGB indicator under the scroll wheel and towards the back of the mouse as well, as while they are removable, they are integrated into the central PCB. Now, technically speaking, the battery is replaceable. However, the process of getting to it is rather tricky, as you not only need to disconnect this RGB indicator, you also need to disconnect the side button PCB, take the ribbon cable out from under this clip here and fold it back as best as you can to keep it out of the way, and then you can access the battery. However, because this is held in by plastic clips, which are very, very strong, I actually can't remove the side button PCB without breaking these clips because there's an incredible amount of force you have to put on them. So I'm not going to remove it for this video, but you can, technically speaking, mod the battery out for another one if you want to. You will of course have to use another type of adhesive to anchor it to the cage structure here, but it is technically serviceable. But if you plan on doing this, keep in mind that the battery is the crux of the mouse's balancing. So if the battery is changed for a smaller or larger one, or its position is changed, it will affect the mouse's balancing. So keep that in mind if you do attempt to mod the battery here on the Keris 2 Origin, though personally speaking I would recommend against it due to the more fragile nature of these ribbon cables at the top shell here. Alright, well that's everything there is to say about this top shell structure here. I'll put that off to the side for now, and now we can go ahead and disassemble the rest of the base shell, which is a relatively easy process. Firstly, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and disconnect the main board, and we can do that by removing a screw from here, 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 and here. With all those screws removed, we can now just put this down and gently pull up from the back of the PCB to disconnect it from the base shell, and you can just pull it straight up here as there are standoffs for the scroll wheel as expected, and you can remove the PCB in one solid piece here. And we can also disconnect the scroll wheel by gently pulling it out of the encoder as we do for all scroll wheels. But during this process, be very mindful of this antenna, as due to its more elongated nature, it is rather prone to damage, so be very careful when working around this. And lastly, on the base shell we have one more removable component, as the base shell slider for its connectivity can also be removed, and we'll talk more about how to reinstall this later in this video. And just like the side buttons which were anchored to the top shell, the bottom DPI and pair buttons here are also melted onto the base shell here, so they cannot be removed. Alright, and with that, that is everything for the base shell here. A relatively simple disassembly process with the exception of all these security screws. But regardless, with that aside, I'm going to go ahead and grab our main PCB and our central cage-like structure here, and let's talk about the mouse's PCB layout and specs next. Alright, starting off with the central cage-like structure here. Here we have the mouse's massive 370 mAh battery, which is the largest battery I've seen in a mouse since I reviewed the previous Keris, which also used the same size, which as we talked about earlier is serviceable to a degree, but it's kind of complicated to get at. For the side button PCB, we have a rather unique design here, as we have the side button switches, but we also have RGB indicators that are added into this central PCB, which is a bit of a unique design, which makes sense in terms of weight saving, but considering the mouse is advertised as weighing 64 plus minus 2 grams, technically speaking, this really doesn't do too much. But regardless, for the side buttons, and just like the previous Keris, we do have two Kale black shell green dot micro switches, which notably are a little lighter in their actuation weight compared to the switches we saw in the Keris 2 Ace, which is a nice change, which makes the side buttons a little more usable here. Next, going to the main board here, in the center we have ROG's Aimpoint Pro sensor, which is just a renamed Pixart 3950HS, which is the expected custom sensor we see for most mice nowadays. In the center of the board we have a last gen Nordic 52840 MCU. Disappointingly, we didn't see a Nordic 54 series SoC here, which would make this mouse much better in terms of performance, as that MCU massively improved the performance of the Harpe 2 Ace, and I'm rather confused as to why they didn't do that here, but regardless of their decision making, we do have a last gen MCU here. For the scroll wheel click, we have a taller pillar switch design with this large blue plunger here, which as expected for a pillar switch does feel a little spongy and is most likely manufactured by TTC, Kale, or Panasonic. For the scroll wheel encoder, and as we've seen on most mice recently, we have a TTC Gold dustproof 14mm 24-step encoder, the expected encoder we've seen used on almost every single mouse this year, as I just mentioned. And for main clicks, instead of the optical switches we saw used on the Keris 2 Ace, here on the Origins we have ROG's mechanical switches, which while they don't have that optical feel and performance, do feel decently implemented, and as a great benefit, they do sit inside ROG's Gen 2 hot swap socket system, which supports both 3 and 5 pin types, which is a really nice feature I'm very happy to see here on the Keris, as this allows you to customize the mouse's click feel to your liking with aftermarket switches, and also allows you to repair them very easily, as this is the component that's going to take the most wear and tear on the mouse, and having these be so easy to service is a great attention to detail, even though this feature is currently only available here on the Keris 2 Origins, but hopefully we'll see it applied to the rest of their lineup in the future. But with that, that is everything for the PCB layout and specs here for the Origins. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the mouse's component weights. Now, as a preface to this segment, as I mentioned a moment ago, ROG is advertising that the Keris 2 Origin will weigh between 64 to 65 grams, as the box and the product page have differing weight specs. And because of that, I gave the mouse a 64 plus minus 2 gram weight spec, which is the industry standard applied to all mouses' weights. But as it turns out, this weight spec is actually rather accurate, as the mouse weighs between 63.2 to 64.6 grams depending on the skate configuration, which is great to see, as ROG historically has been rather accurate with their weight specs, and I'm glad to see that going forward, and I'm glad to see that continue here, though I will say I wasn't exactly expecting an almost 11 gram jump from the Keris 2 Ace, but seeing a lot of the internal design here, I understand why they went for the heavier weight, but I do think they would benefit from slimming this weight down to more around the 60 gram range on the next iteration of the Keris. Now, in terms of individual component weights, starting off with the base shell with all of its buttons, it weighs around 10.76 grams, whereas the top shell weighs 16.82 grams, a notably heavier top shell we've seen on many other mice recently, mainly due to this large cone-like structure as I mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, the main clicks, due to their thinner material, collectively weigh 4.95 grams, the mouse's scroll wheel weighs 1.77 grams, and the PCB, due to its larger design, weighs 13.06 grams, and this is an area ROG could improve on their future products, as there is a lot of area here on this PCB that could have been milled out to save a little bit of weight. And lastly, the central cage structure with its 300 mAh battery, side button PCB, ribbon cables, and RGB indicator collectively weighs 12.95 grams, and if I had to guess, I would assume this battery accounts for 7 to 9 grams of this cage-like structure's total weight. And lastly, all of the screws inside the Keris and the two plastic nubs that cover up the holes on the base shell collectively weigh 1.76 grams. Alright, now that we've talked all about the mouse's individual component weights, now we can go ahead and start our reassembly process, and we're going to start off with the base shell. Alrighty, first step here is going to be reinstalling this bottom slider button, in which it's going to go into the shell with this kind of little clip on the side facing out. So it's going to go in just like that, and you can verify it's in by flipping the shell over and moving it up and down. However, just like we saw on the Keris 2 Ace and of course the Harpe 2 Ace, there is a slider switch on the bottom of the mouse that corresponds to this slider. Now, it's very important to make sure you orient this switch and this button in the same orientation, as if you put this into the upper orientation and this in the lower one, you could potentially break this, which would render the entire mouse inoperable. As such, what I recommend doing is making sure you put this into the bottommost orientation like that, and I recommend putting this into the bottommost orientation as well. Then you can take your scroll wheel, take the thinner end of it, and put it into that little hole in the encoder there. So just line it up into place and push it in all the way, and then just take your fingers and pinch slightly and just give a little bit of leeway towards the top there. You just want to have a sliver of space there, as that will allow it to sit into its standoffs properly. Then you can go ahead and take the base, orient it this way, make sure the switch is in its bottommost position, and do the same for the switch on the base here, and then take this and drop it straight down onto the board, and you can use these central pegs as kind of guides as they go through the PCB here and here. So just line it up as best as you can, drop it into place just like that, and once it's in, just put your thumb on top to press it down and into place fully. Once done, with your fingers still pressing the board to the base shell, flip the mouse over and make sure this switch still functions. So make sure whenever you move it, there's like a tactile switch to it. You want to make sure it actually moves. If it's not moving, that means that the switch on the bottom of this weren't aligned properly, and if that's the case, take the board off, reorient the switch and the bottom slider button, and reinstall it. But as long as this base switch is functional, you can then go ahead and flip the board back over, make sure everything is sitting properly, and you can go ahead and re-anchor the board's 4 anchoring screws, which go here, 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 and here. And then with all those screws reinstalled, make sure the board is sitting properly, make sure it doesn't have any wobbling to it, and just double check this bottom slider and make sure it is still working, which it is, so we are good to go. Next, we can go ahead and re-anchor the central cage-like structure, which is going to be a bit of an interesting process, but I'll guide you guys through the whole thing. Firstly, what you're going to do is you're going to orient the shells like this, and what you want to do is you want to take the RGB indicator, and what you want to do is you want to take this at an angle and slide it into the scroll wheel just like that. Once you have the PCB for the LEDs inside the scroll wheel, flip the shell over, and you want to make sure that this little piece of plastic goes over the antenna, and it should look something like that. And you need to be rather careful with this because this piece of plastic could bend or warp this antenna or just break it off the board entirely. So be very careful with this and make sure this piece of plastic is sitting properly. Once that's done, you want to flip the shell back like this, open it up like this, grab some pliers, and just gently grab this JST plug into its connector and just trying to line it up as best as you can, like that. And once it's in place, clip it down with your fingers just just like that. Once the JST connector is plugged in, just gently hold this cage-like structure kind of here, and then go on the bottom of the mouse, flick the unit on, and make sure it actually turns on. If it doesn't, there's most likely something wrong with this JST connector. Either there's a piece of dust inside that's causing a connection not to happen, or maybe the JST connector isn't properly seated. But regardless, just make sure the mouse turns on before you do anything else, as having to undo everything to check a JST plug would be rather unfortunate. With the JST connector installed, next we're going to go over to the side shell here. We're going to go deal with this ribbon cable connector. Now, the best way to deal with this is to just get a fingernail underneath the top, and you want to pull it into the open position just like that. Then you want to take this entire structure and kind of seat it onto its standoffs and hold it into place. And then you want to take the ribbon cable and very gently feed it into its connector. Now, this connector has a habit of closing, meaning you'll probably have to run a fingernail over it and then plug it in all the way, but we got lucky here. And it should be oriented just like that, where that white bar is like just visible over the clip. And once it's installed properly, you can take a fingernail and just clip this connector down just like that. Once this is connected, and while still holding this entire structure in place, flip the mouse over again, turn it on, and make sure everything is still functional. So check your side buttons, make sure they are functional, and check the mouse's lighting to make sure everything is working. Now, if you didn't tamper with this too much, I wouldn't worry too much about it not working. But if you did remove the ribbon cable to, say, serve as the battery, I would check it because these ribbon cables are rather fragile. So just make sure everything works before you go forward. But once you've verified everything is functional, you can flip the mouse back over again and place it down. And now we can go ahead and re-anchor the cage-like structure by putting a screw here, here, in the middle there, and one right here. Once all those screws are anchored in, go ahead and check the cage-like structure, make sure it's fully anchored to the base shell. If there's any wobbling or creaking to it, just give the screws another tension just to make sure it's sitting properly. And with that, that is everything for the base shell's reassembly process. A little more complicated than usual due to all these security screws, but manageable in most cases. We'll put this off to the side for a moment, and now we can go ahead and reassemble the top shell. Alright, now the process for the top shell is going to be very easy, as the only thing we have to do is re-anchor the main clicks, because that was the only thing we could remove here, which makes this process much simpler than it usually is. Now to do this, we're going to go ahead and take our main click, and what you want to do is you want to feed it through the hole in the bottom of the shell here, and you want to orient it in a way where this arch goes over that little standoff towards the top, and once you push it over the little stabilizer there, it should just naturally sit onto its little standoffs, and you can just press it down with your thumb just like that. We'll do the same process with the next click. We'll go in through the bottom, up and over, push it over its stabilizer, into place, and press down with our thumb just like that. And once these are reinstalled, you can now go ahead and reinstall that central anchoring screw. However, as I always say with these screws specifically, you need to be very careful, as if you over-tension them, you could not only potentially break their pilot holes, you could also irreparably damage the main clicks, or alternatively, if you under-tension them, the main clicks will feel very mushy. So for these screws specifically, it's very important to screw them in until you feel a little bit of tension. Do not over-tension them under any circumstances, as doing so can break your main clicks. And when you do this, make sure not to rest the shell on the clicks like this, as pressure like that can knock them off of their standoffs. So you want to orient the shell like this, where the weight's on the back, and then you can anchor the screws. Alright, and then with those installed, just go ahead and check your main clicks, and they should have kind of a natural buoyancy just like that. If your clicks feel very heavy and don't travel down, you've most likely over-tensioned the screws, but if you follow my instructions exactly, they should have a naturally buoyant or bouncy main click just like that. Okay, and then with that, that is everything for the top shell. Now we can go ahead and reassemble the top and base shells and finish off our teardown. Now this process is going to be very easy, as the mouse's more serviceable top shell makes this process quite easy. Firstly, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and take the shells and orient it like this, and what you want to do is you want to angle in the top shell like this to clip in those front two connectors, kind of like that, as you can kind of see it sitting into place. And then once it's in, you want to take your hand and push it down and in, just like that, to clip the shells together. You can run your thumb along the sides of the shells to make sure everything made proper contact, and then you can go ahead and take your screwdriver and re-anchor the anchoring screw that goes here and here. Once these screws are installed, the top and base shells are anchored down together. Go ahead, turn the mouse on, and just give it a quick once over and check all of its features. So check the side buttons, check the scroll wheel click, and most importantly, make sure the main clicks feel even in their tensioning, which, as long as you follow my instructions and didn't over tension them, they will feel pretty much exactly the same. And with that, you can go ahead and turn the mouse off. Go ahead and reinstall these little nubs that cover the bottom access screws if you want. Reinstall your preferred set of aftermarket skates, and that concludes your teardown of the ROG Keris Origins. In closing, overall, while this mouse is a somewhat improvement from the Keris 2 Ace, unfortunately it is a big step backwards in terms of serviceability. As well, it is very easy to remove the top shell to access the hot swap main clicks. All the rest of the internal components due to those security screws are very difficult to service, and the way that the central cage is designed makes servicing the battery very difficult as well, which is very disappointing to see. As such, and like I said in my full review, I would love to see ROG make a Keris 3 with the same design methodology we saw in the Harpe 2 Ace, as the serviceability of that mouse was fantastic, and compared to this mouse it feels like a step backward, where this mouse should have been a step forward for the Keris series in my opinion. But with that, that concludes today's episode of Teardown. Thank you very much for watching, and thanks again to ROG for sending the Keris 2 Origins over for review, and a massive thank you to all of our channel members who make the Teardown project possible. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, consider subscribing, and if you want to directly support my Teardown project, making repair guides for all mice I cover here on the channel, and of course my in-depth product reviews, consider becoming a channel member, as that is the best way to directly support all my efforts here on the channel, and being a channel member also gives you early access to all upcoming content, including videos like this one. But that's everything for today. Thanks again for watching my teardown of the ROG Keris 2 Origin, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.